Hi everyone, and welcome back to Treasures from the Torah. I'm Abigail Snyder, and today we're going to be diving into what the ancient rabbis had to say about friendship. They offer some pretty epic advice, so let's go ahead and dive in and learn what they have to say. I think I've mentioned before that one of the reasons I'm compelled to study the rabbis is because I'll never get bored. The rabbis assume innumerable titles, from philosopher to ethicist to attorney to psychologist, and today we're going to see that the rabbis take up a new title, relationship advice giver. Today we're going to turn to the Babylonian Talmud for a story about friendship, and for context, the Babylonian Talmud that was written out at the rabbinic academies in Babylon, and that was produced from 400 to 600 CE. The Babylonian Talmud has many great stories, as does the Palestinian Talmud, but this is probably one of my favorite stories of all time in rabbinic literature because it's just so punchy and really sticks with you, and it has some practical life lessons that all of us can apply. Today's story, from which we'll glean incredible lessons about friendship, comes from the Babylonian Talmud, and as we discussed in our last timeline episode, the Babylonian Talmud was produced by those rabbis out at the rabbinic academies in Babylon, and it was completed around 600 CE. Both the Palestinian Talmud and the Babylonian Talmud have some incredible stories that kind of get at the heart of what it means to be human and what it means to interact with others in this world. But this is one of my all-time favorite stories because it just gets at the heart of what it means to be a friend and the risks, literally, that come with that are both necessary but also can be harmful. So let's go ahead and talk through this story. Today's story comes from the Babylonian Talmud. Like we talked about last time, the Babylonian Talmud was the later of the two Talmuds, the earlier being the Palestinian Talmud, the later being the Babylonian, and the Babylonian Talmud was compiled out at the rabbinic academies in Babylon. It was ultimately completed around 600 CE. Now, the Babylonian Talmud and the Palestinian Talmud both have amazing stories that are used to teach lessons through the lives of these different characters. But if I had to choose one story that I could take with me to a desert island and have with me for the rest of my life, it would probably be this story. It is so impactful. It teaches some really incredible lessons about friendship, about the necessity of risk-taking in friendship while also knowing the boundary between taking too much risk. So the plan for today is kind of to do a close reading of this story, going through it line by line, breaking it down as we go, and then at the end we'll draw a few ethical lessons specifically about friendship from the story. Let's go ahead and get started. As we go ahead and start reading from Baba Metzia 84b in the Babylonian Talmud, we need to be aware of two main characters. First, we have Rabbi Yochanan, whom my advisor, when she's taught me the story, has deemed pretty boy, and that will become apparent in a little bit. And we also have Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish was a former robber. He now is Ish Gibor. He is the strong man, the heroic man. So let's go ahead and start reading, and you'll see how pretty boy and Ish Gibor interact. As the story goes, one day Rabbi Yochanan was bathing in the Jordan River. So Rabbi Yochanan is there, kind of taking his bath just in the river because they didn't have nice showers like we do in the modern world, so he's just using the river as his bathtub. Well, then it says that Reish Lakish saw him, and he leaps into the Jordan after him. Now that's a little bit odd, and the story doesn't give us much more information, but we can kind of assume or infer that Reish Lakish thinks that Rabbi Yochanan is a woman, right? Like I said at the beginning, Rabbi Yochanan can also be called pretty boy. So it's possible that Reish Lakish thinks he's a woman, and he goes and leaps after him in the hopes that he can find his next girlfriend. Well, Rabbi Yochanan sees this and says to him, "Your strength should be for Torah. Instead of running around and trying to chase women, how about you put that toward the most important thing in this world, which is studying Torah?" Well, Reish Lakish doesn't quite like that, and he tells Rabbi Yochanan, "Your beauty, sir, you're this beautiful man. I even thought you were a woman. Your beauty should be for women, right? You should be out there getting married and having children, and you shouldn't be stuck up in a rabbinic academy where you're just studying the Torah all day." Rabbi Yochanan doesn't take that as an answer. He's not satisfied, and he tells Reish Lakish, "If you repent from this life as a robber, from this life of trying to go around and find women, then I will give you my sister in marriage, and she's more beautiful than I. Reish Lakish does take Rabbi Yochanan up on this offer, and the text says that Rabbi Yochanan taught Reish Lakish Bible and Mishnah and made him into a great man. So Reish Lakish kind of enters an academy and becomes Rabbi Yochanan's student, and he becomes the sort of Torah scholar that Rabbi Yochanan wanted him to be. Now that's really nice framing and important framing, but now we're going to get into kind of the crux of the issue. One day, there was a dispute in the schoolhouse with respect to the following issue: a sword, knife, dagger, spear, handsaw. So all of these weapons, at what stage of their manufacture can they become unclean? There's this idea in Judaism of things becoming ceremonially unclean, and then they can't be used. And the question is, at what point when you're putting together something like a dagger or a sword, at what point can that material, can that sword become ceremonially unclean? And so someone rules, well, it's when their manufacture is finished. And sure, that makes sense, but the rabbis have to always dig a little bit deeper. And so the question is, well, when is their manufacture finished? When are weapons actually done? Is it when they're encased in their packaging? Is it when the top of the dagger and kind of that piece that you hold on to is put together? At what point is the manufacture done? Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish disagree on this issue. Rabbi Yochanan says that they can become unclean once they're tempered in a furnace, but Reish Lakish says it's only when they've been furbished in water. So they're advocating that at different stages, the material actually becomes unclean. The manufacture is finished at different stages. Well, Rabbi Yochanan doesn't like that Reish Lakish has become this Torah scholar and can disagree with him. And he tells him, yeah, of course, man, a robber understands his trade. And then Rabbi Yochanan goes on to say that he's brought Reish Lakish under the wings of the Shekinah, under the wings of the glory of God. But Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan kind of have a little bit of a falling apart here. Something goes wrong. Rabbi Yochanan says that he feels deeply hurt. Reish Lakish gets sick. Why? We have to unpack something that isn't made completely explicit in the text, but this close reading that we're doing is going to kind of allow it to come to the surface. When Rabbi Yochanan tells Reish Lakish that a robber understands his trade, he is drawing back to Reish Lakish's past as a robber, and that's something that Reish Lakish has tried to leave behind. Now he's this Torah scholar. Now he doesn't want to be a robber. He's trying to move on, and somehow Rabbi Yochanan is still pulling him back to that past. Maybe most of the time it seems like Rabbi Yochanan had faith in Reish Lakish, and he's moving him forward and putting him on the right path. But Reish Lakish now sees that, at least for this moment, Rabbi Yochanan still remembers him as a robber and still sees him in that light, and that really hurts him. Again, just to reiterate why we know this is the case, we have this dispute about weapons that robbers would probably use, right? Like a knife and a dagger and a sword. And Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan disagree on a ruling about when the manufacture of these items is completed. And Rabbi Yochanan kind of tells him, Reish Lakish, yeah man, you're a robber, so of course you're going to think that you're right in the situation because you're a robber. And that really hurts Reish Lakish because, like I said, he's trying to move on. He's trying to turn over a new leaf, become a new man. And Rabbi Yochanan simply is not letting him. He's pulling him back to the past. This moment really hurts their friendship. And in fact, it leads to a disastrous situation. Reish Lakish is sick, right? And then he ends up dying. And Rabbi Yochanan, it says, is plunged into deep grief. He's very, very upset. Although ultimately, we can kind of link from the text that Reish Lakish got sick because of this whole encounter. Something about their friendship was so close, so deep, so important and vital for their survival that when that bridge is broken, Reish Lakish gets sick, Rabbi Yochanan is really upset, Reish Lakish dies. It's a mess for everyone involved, and we'll see that it continues to get even more messy, all because Rabbi Yochanan took an unnecessary jab, tried to pull someone back into the past from which Reish Lakish was trying to move on. Well, the rabbis surrounding Rabbi Yochanan see that he's really upset, and they think that the natural solution for this man, Rabbi Yochanan, who is a great Torah scholar, is to simply get him back into study. That will kind of ease his mind of the grief. And so the rabbis in the academy say, well, we have this other guy, Rabbi Eliezer, who is really smart. He knows a lot, he can speak well, he has a good mind, so let's go ahead and partner him up with Rabbi Yochanan. Reish Lakish is dead, he can't be Rabbi Yochanan's study partner anymore, but at least Eliezer will probably work. While Rabbi Eliezer might have been quite a brilliant man, he ends up causing a bit of a problem for Rabbi Yochanan. The text says that Rabbi Eliezer went and sat before Rabbi Yochanan, and every time Rabbi Yochanan uttered a statement, Rabbi Eliezer would say, yes, there's something in the rabbis that supports you. Rabbi Yochanan doesn't like that. Why? Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish disagreed all the time. They were study partners that challenged each other to be better, and unfortunately they took it a little bit too far in that last interaction that the Talmud records, where Rabbi Yochanan basically takes a jab at Reish Lakish, but in general they were challenging each other and becoming better through that. They were learning about their own beliefs and how to solidify them because they had to challenge them in each other's presence. The problem is Rabbi Eliezer sits before Rabbi Yochanan and says, well, to respect Rabbi Yochanan, I'm just going to say, yeah, indeed, everything you say, past rabbis have agreed with you. You're a genius Torah scholar. Rabbi Yochanan is really upset. He says to Rabbi Eliezer, when I stated a law to Reish Lakish used to raise 24 objections, to which I gave 24 answers, which consequently led to a fuller comprehension of the law. So basically, through their disagreements that they had all the time, they came to know their own positions better. Maybe they didn't sway each other's minds all the time. Maybe one had his reasons and the other had his reasons, and they had their 24 objections and their 24 responses. But at least they were deeply thinking about the issue. Rabbi Eliezer doesn't deeply think about issues. He might be a really, really smart man, but at least in these encounters with Rabbi Yochanan, he's simply sitting there and saying, Rabbi Yochanan, you're right. Rabbi Yochanan is really unhappy. He even calls out Rabbi Eliezer and says, all you tell me is that I'm right. Do I not know myself that my words are right? The story then ends in a pretty sad way. Rabbi Yochanan really is never consoled by Rabbi Eliezer, who refuses to disagree with him, and Rabbi Yochanan weeps and tears his garments, and he cries out, where are you, O Reish Lakish? Where are you? And he cried until his mind was turned. Basically, he cried until he was mad. He made himself go mad. And then Rabbi Yochanan dies. That story may seem very depressing, and you might say, Abigail, I cannot believe that's your desert island story. That's the story that you would want to take with you and keep with you every single day if you could only have one story from the Talmud with you for the rest of your life on a desert island? And the answer is yes. I love that story. Obviously a very sad ending. Obviously Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish both die. That's not desirable. But it's almost a cautionary tale. There are actually a lot of those in rabbinic literature where we have an illustration of something that we shouldn't do. And we learn what we should do from what we shouldn't. The big ethical lesson that I learned from that story is that relationships and friendships require risk. Let me explain. At the beginning, when Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish first meet, remember when they each present their case in a way? Rabbi Yochanan says to Reish Lakish, I want to make you into a Torah scholar, and Reish Lakish says, well, I want you to get married and use your beauty for women. They both stand up for their own beliefs, and that's risky. Think about meeting someone on the street that you don't know and standing up for your own belief, whether it be political or religious or anything in between. That's really, really a scary thought, right? We don't just do that. We don't run into strangers and say, and this is what I believe, and then they say, well, this is what I believe, and somehow they disagree, but they still become best friends. That's kind of unheard of. But somehow Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish made this friendship work for a long time, because they took risks with one another. From their very first encounter all the way up until as Rabbi Yochanan is training Reish Lakish as a Torah scholar and then he kind of becomes his study partner, they continue to take risks. We learned about that from Rabbi Yochanan telling Rabbi Eliezer that Reish Lakish would challenge him on what he believed, and then Rabbi Yochanan would respond, and they would come to a fuller comprehension of the law and the Torah through those interactions. It was constantly engaging in risky behaviors. But risk, while it's necessary in friendships and relationships, because if you don't have risk, your friendship and relationship can't move forward, it can't grow, it will always remain in the same place. We're too afraid to really move forward. Risk is necessary, but we learned at the end from the rabbis that risk can also blow everything up. There is a fine line to be walked between risk that is necessary for the friendship to be close and risk that just tears people apart. And unfortunately, Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan experienced the kind of risk that tore them apart when Rabbi Yochanan took the risky move, and he said, well, I'm going to make this joke about Reish Lakish's past as a robber and say, of course, he thinks that he's right about what he believes because he was a robber. That was his past, and I drew him out of that. Reish Lakish is really hurt. Rabbi Yochanan is in a mess because of that. Reish Lakish dies because of that. Rabbi Yochanan ends up dying because of that. Rabbi Yochanan admits that he craves that risk that they took. Right? He admits that to Rabbi Eliezer. Why aren't you challenging me? But it wasn't good enough. So while Rabbi Eliezer takes no risk, he is completely risk averse, Rabbi Yochanan took too much risk, and that hurt his friendship with Reish Lakish. His friendship with Eliezer is never developed because there is no risk, and his friendship with Reish Lakish is destroyed because there is too much risk. Deep friendships and rich interactions require risk. You can't call someone a best friend when you only ask them, well, is the sun out today? What's the weather? You need to move into risky interactions. What do you believe about this? What do you think about this? Even when you might disagree. But there's a difference between risk that is generative and risk that is destructive. Generative risk is necessary. The friendship between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yochanan never developed because there was no generative risk. But ruinous risk is an ever-present danger, and Rabbi Yochanan engaged in that in his friendship with Reish Lakish and ultimately destroyed their relationship. So what we learn from this story is that a thriving relationship will have effective risk management. Of course, it's fun to joke with friends and make jabs at one another and, be sarcastic, all of that. And that's necessary. I think you could even say it for the friendship to develop. The rabbis, I think, would certainly say that. I love kind of when my friends make fun of me. It shows an element of trust that you all share, that you can make fun of, some quirk in my personality or my past, and we can joke about that. But there is certainly a point at which a line can be crossed, and you can make a jab about someone's personality or about their past or something about them as a human person, and it hurts. And it hurts to the point that it's not funny. It's a risk that went too far. It's not a generative risk. Thriving relationships know that boundary between effective risk, generative risk, and ruinous risk. And even the greatest of friendships and the greatest of relationships still aren't perfect. I've taken jabs at friends that have landed in really the wrong way and have caused rifts to develop between us that have to be addressed. And likewise, I've experienced that from my own close friends. So I don't think that we'll ever be perfect. I think that we'll always be towing that line between risk that's healthy and risk that's harmful. But maybe with these lessons from the rabbis, we can avoid the risk that's harmful a little bit more and concentrate on the risk-taking that is generative and healthy and necessary for those rich social interactions that we all crave. I hope that this story of Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish and Rabbi Eliezer there too at the end from the Babylonian Talmud has been helpful for you as you think about what it means to be in friendships and relationships, what it means to be a person in a world with other people. And the really exciting part about living in this world is that some of those people we get to know in a much closer way. Some of those people we get to call best friends, and we get to call them partners, and we get to call them people who we do life with. But we have to recognize that to get to that special place with certain people, we have to move beyond simply asking, hey, how's the weather today? Hey, how are you? Good. And that's it. We have to move into a place where we open up, where we're vulnerable, where we're okay with taking some risks. But we also have to recognize when risk-taking can go too far, when that jab hurts someone, when that joke isn't a joke anymore. That's when risk is ruinous and risk is harmful and can even destroy friendships, destroy relationships, and in the situation of Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, they both died, really, of a broken heart. Again, I hope that this story has been meaningful for you, and I hope you'll come back next time as we continue to discuss the rabbis and the lessons we can learn, the timeless lessons we can learn from their texts. I'll see you next time here at Treasures from the Torah.